One of my favorite forms of fiction to read and write is flash fiction. Flash fiction is a type of story that is very short, typically 500 words or less. The challenge of flash fiction is packing a full story into 4 or 5 paragraphs. But how can you write an engaging story in under 500 words? Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'll give you the perfect plot structure to create flash fiction that is both entertaining and engaging. Act 1 is the introduction of the first 100 words. You have about 100 words to write the exposition of your story. In the exposition, you will introduce your characters and setting. Introduce your reader to 1 or 2 characters, but don't exceed 3. Tell us what these characters are doing and where they are. For now, focus on the characters and give us small details about the setting, enough to establish the genre of your story. In other words, describe a space station if you're writing sci-fi, or an enchanted castle if you're writing a fantasy. Rely on common genre characteristics when describing your setting and even your characters. That way, your reader will feel grounded in a familiar story, and you will set up expectations that you can either play on or subvert in the third act of your story. Act 2 is reserved for the development of the characters and settings you establish in Act 1. Expand a little more on the setting here. Tell us more about where your characters are and what they're doing. What kind of situation are they in? How does this affect their interactions? Basically, you're setting a scene. Maybe the characters are repairing a piece of exotic technology, or they are learning to cast a certain spell. The most important thing to know about this act is that you're writing a setup. A setup in fiction means that you, the writer, are creating the necessary environment for a coming conflict, whatever that conflict may be. The simplest setup in fiction is probably Chekhov's gun, a concept that says if a narrator mentions a gun hanging on a wall in the first act, then a character should definitely fire that gun in the story's climax. In this third act, you want to metaphorically hang a gun on the wall, or set up a conflict that will culminate in the third and fourth acts. So give yourself a few more words for this section, maybe 150. In Act 3, you'll introduce a conflict or a plot twist. This act is the payoff to your story. You want to shock your reader, subvert their expectations, or make them laugh. Your twist can be something good or bad, but it should affect the characters in a significant way. This act is the most important part of your story, so take your time and make it count. The best way to make your story memorable is by subverting your reader's expectations. Take an element of the characters or setting that you've established and flip it on its head. The happy couple that has been married for 50 years is actually a pair of serial killers. The peaceful mountain your characters are climbing becomes an erupting volcano. The possibilities are endless, so stretch your imagination and create something truly unique. Just be sure that it makes sense in the context of your story. 200 words should be more than enough. Act 4 is your conclusion. Notice this is a conclusion, not a resolution. In flash fiction, we don't have to provide readers with a satisfying ending. We can simply leave them on an intriguing story beat, a moment that makes your reader think about your story for hours or even a few days after they've read it. And in 500 words, you probably don't have time for a resolution anyway, so leave your reader with something to ponder. Perhaps your killer couple escapes justice. Will they kill again? Or do our stranded hikers make it off the mountain alive? Your readers can decide. The nice thing about flash fiction is that they're fun and you can knock out a punchy little tale in a short time. If you enjoy a flash fiction piece, you can revisit it later. Expand on your premise to create a full-length work like a short story or novel. If you want more help writing short stories, I have a simple template for sale on my website, theartofnarrative.com, and I'll link it in the comments below. But another free way to support the channel is to like and subscribe, especially if you learned something here that would be helpful. As always, keep writing.